a heartbreaking tale of love and loss. There was a quiet kind of beauty in the way Benjamin and Charlotte had loved each other. It wasn't a love full of loud declarations or grand gestures, but it was real. It was built on small moments, the way Benjamin would leave little notes in Charlotte's coat pockets, the way Charlotte would brush his hair back when he was too tired to notice. It was a love that felt like it would last forever, or at least, that was the hope they both carried. Charlotte remembered the first time they met. It wasn't a moment that would make for a great story, no first kiss under the stars or accidental touch that sparked a whirlwind romance. It was simply a quiet afternoon in a bookshop, two strangers reaching for the same novel, their hands brushing as they both pulled it off the shelf. They had both laughed, awkwardly at first, and then settled into an easy conversation about the book. Neither of them knew that moment would change their lives forever. They were two halves of a whole, Charlotte, with her gentle smile and thoughtful eyes, always looking for something deeper in life, Benjamin, with his quiet confidence, his laugh that could fill a room even when he wasn't trying. They balanced each other in ways that neither fully understood, but neither questioned. They simply loved each other in the way love was meant to be, without asking for anything in return. Years passed, and with each passing day, their love only grew stronger. They built a life together, brick by brick, carefully crafting a home that was full of warmth. Every day was a choice to love, a choice to be there for one another no matter what. There were struggles, of course, there always are. But they faced them together. When Benjamin lost his job, Charlotte was there to remind him that they would get through it. When Charlotte lost her father, Benjamin held her through the nights when the pain felt too heavy to bear. There were no promises they made that were grand enough to hold the weight of their love. But there were little promises, promise to always be there when it mattered most, promise to never let the other face their demons alone, and the promise to hold each other close, no matter how dark things seemed. But life has a way of testing even the strongest of bonds, and sometimes, the love that seems unbreakable can feel as fragile as glass. One crisp autumn morning, Charlotte woke to the sound of Benjamin's breath, slow and uneven, coming from beside her. She turned to see his face, pale and tired, his eyes closed in sleep. But there was something different. His chest rose and fell with a sluggishness that didn't belong, and his hand felt cold against hers. "Ben," Charlotte whispered, her voice shaky. She had learned to read the quiet moments between them, and something about this moment didn't feel right. Benjamin stirred but didn't wake. His lips barely moved as he tried to speak. "Charlotte, something's wrong," he whispered, his voice thick with pain. Panic surged through Charlotte. She didn't hesitate. She grabbed her phone and dialed for help, her hands shaking as she pressed the buttons. The next few minutes were a blur of sirens and strangers rushing through their home. Charlotte couldn't understand the words they said, but she didn't need to. She already knew. There was something in the way the paramedics worked so fast, yet so carefully, that told her everything she needed to know. It was a heart attack. The doctors told her that Benjamin's heart had stopped suddenly, and there was nothing they could have done. Charlotte's world seemed to stop, as if time itself had paused to give her a moment to breathe. But there was no breath coming, no way to hold on to anything solid. She felt like she was falling into a never-ending abyss, her heart breaking in ways that words couldn't explain. Days turned into weeks, but Charlotte didn't know how to live without him. She walked through their home, each room filled with memories of their time together, but now, each memory felt like a weight, too heavy to bear, too painful to remember. Their bed, once so full of love and laughter, now felt empty and cold. The space beside her where Benjamin had always slept was a reminder of the love she had lost. The silence in their home was deafening. Charlotte tried to fill the silence with the things she had always done, writing in her journal, reading the books Benjamin had left on the shelf, even cooking the meals they had shared together. But nothing felt right. It was as if the very air around her had changed, no longer filled with the warmth of their shared moments. The light that had once filled their home now felt dull and lifeless. One evening, months after Benjamin had passed, Charlotte went back to the place where they first met, the bookshop. It was a small, cozy store nestled on a quiet street, one of those places where the smell of old pages and coffee lingered in the air. Charlotte hadn't been back since that day. The memories of Benjamin were too fresh, too painful. As she stepped through the door, the bell above it chimed softly, a sound that seemed to echo in her heart. The warmth of the shop wrapped around her, and for a brief moment, she felt as if she could reach out and touch the past. She walked to the section where they had first met, and there, sitting in its familiar place, was the same book they had both reached for that day. She pulled it off the shelf, running her fingers over the cover. The memories flooded her, Benjamin's smile, his gentle teasing, the way they had laughed together. She closed her eyes, wishing with every fiber of her being that he could be there beside her, that they could share this moment once more. But when she opened her eyes, the truth settled heavily in her chest: he wasn't coming back. The weight of forever pressed down on her, and for the first time since his death, Charlotte allowed herself to weep. She wept for the life they had lost, for the love that would never fade but would never be the same again. In the months that followed, Charlotte learned to live with the loss, though the pain never fully went away. She couldn't forget Benjamin, and she didn't want to. He had been her everything, and in the absence of his presence, she found pieces of him in the world around her. She would see a sunset that reminded her of the way he used to smile when they watched the sky turn gold together. She would hear a song on the radio that would transport her back to the days when their love had felt so easy. But it wasn't just the big moments that reminded her of him. It was the small things too. The way the wind blew through the trees, the way their favorite chair creaked when she sat in it, the smell of coffee brewing in the morning. All of these things carried Benjamin's memory, and though the pain of losing him never quite left, Charlotte found comfort in knowing that love had a way of lingering long after the person was gone. One evening, as Charlotte sat by the window, staring at the stars that filled the sky, she thought of the promise they had made to each other, the promise to always be there, no matter what. She knew Benjamin was still there, in the quiet moments, in the memories they had shared, in the love they had built. And though the weight of forever would never fully lift, Charlotte learned to carry it. She learned that the power of their love was not in its absence, but in the way it continued to shape her life, even in his absence. She held on to the truth that love, once given, never truly fades. It is always there, tucked away in the heart, waiting to be remembered. The pain of loss was deep, but the love they had shared was deeper still. And in the quiet moments when Charlotte closed her eyes and felt his presence around her, she understood that love, in all its forms, has the power to endure forever.